Hey, this is Joe from HomeStudioCorner.com. Okay, so we've gone through general, locations, and audio setup under preferences. Now let's jump over to external devices. Now, this may have nothing for you, depending on what you have connected to your computer. For me, the two main external devices other than my audio interface that I use are my PreSonus fader port, which is a super nifty device. It's got a fader and buttons. I mean, what more could you ask for? And then I use an Oxygen 61, which is just a basic 61-channel MIDI controller that I plug in. Both of these plug in via USB. When you first start up Studio One, so let's say you bought a fader port and you want to add it to your setup, you plug it in, maybe install drivers. Honestly, I don't think I've ever installed them. I think it just works. You plug it in and then turn on Studio One, and it will recognize that there's a new device. For example, with the Oxygen 61, it said, hey, there's a new 61-channel MIDI keyboard controller plugged in. What do you want me to do? And then you go through and you can pick the actual device that you have. So I actually found it under M Audio Oxygen 61, or you can just name it and say what kind of device it is. And then you can set, if you get more into MIDI stuff, I'm more of an audio guy. I use MIDI, I understand it, but if you really get into sending different channels to different places and all that fun stuff, you can set all that up. But generally, I have it set up to where my Oxygen 61 is my MIDI input device, and it's as simple as that. Now, there's a couple of other settings here. You can add devices after starting Studio One. I like to add them, plug them in, and then start Studio One, and it just finds them and does things for me. And if you want to get rid of devices, you can do that here. You can edit them. You can change their placement, which I'm honestly not quite terribly sure what that does. I guess if they can be placed. Oh, if this would be like an audio, like a control surface, and you wanted to change the order, this bank of faders is in front of this bank of faders. I think that's what happens, what that means. And this is kind of neat. If you want to know if a device isn't working when you start up Studio One, you can have this checkbox enabled. I turned it off because I don't leave my MIDI controller plugged in all the time. I really just plug it in when I need to record some MIDI parts, which isn't all that often. So every time I started Studio One, it would stop the startup process and say, hey, the Oxygen 61's missing, someone stole it. And I would have to say, no, it didn't, just keep going. So I turned that setting off so it's not doing that every time. Also, if you ever have a device that disappears and doesn't appear to be connected, you can reconnect it here. It's all pretty self-explanatory, but if you didn't know where to find it, you'd be a little hard-pressed. So if you have devices that aren't working, aren't showing up, this is the place to come find them. Again, not audio interfaces, but actual external devices such as MIDI controllers and control surfaces. Those are the two main ones. Okay? All right. See you in the next video.